Really appreciate you taking some time out of the day to talk with us about Halo 4. Maybe you guys could kind of go in individually real quick on your kind of backgrounds in the gaming industry before signing on with 343.
Sure. You want to start?
So I've actually been in Microsoft Game Studios for I think about 13 years. I came up through the art side and actually spent a lot of time focused on racing games for a while, which is where a lot of my pedigree comes from. Also worked on games like Crackdown and Fable and all of that. So I came originally from the publishing side. I was the art director for MGS before I moved into an executive producer role and then joined 343 when it started in 2008.
So I've been in games longer than I can remember. I think I started in '95 at EA Canada. I started in test and then moved into production and became a producer and designer on the NBA Live series, was then the lead designer on the original NBA Street, and a series called Def Jam Vendetta and Def Jam Fight for New York, which was a crazy mashup of fighting and wrestling and rappers. And then I worked on some incubation projects while I was there as well, and then left to co-found a studio called Propaganda Games in Vancouver. We were subsequently bought by the Walt Disney Company. We worked on the reboot for Turok on next-gen consoles. And I was there as the studio GM for about 4 years, and then left to come to 343 in early 2009.
I'm sure you're very glad to be able to talk about it for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even just saying
Three,
Halo
after
4, right, still feels a little bit weird. I mean, we went so long without being able to say anything, working on a project in the Halo universe. So yeah, being able to actually articulate Halo 4 feels pretty good.
Yeah, I think that was probably one of the hardest things for the team, because we had people been working on this game for over 2 years who haven't really been able to talk about it. We had people who we hired into the studio that didn't even really know exactly what it was that they were going to be building when they signed on. They just knew it was going to be something awesome and it was going to be set in the Halo universe. So it's pretty cool to be able to share, what little we've been able to share about it so far.
You guys just came off of Halo Fest. Now that is the first kind of big Halo celebration, like large-scale fan event that Halo's had, right?
Yeah, we really wanted to do something special for the 10-year anniversary of Halo. So this is something that we started really thinking about and talking about as a team here at 343 almost a year ago, I guess.
And I think everyone understands how much sort of love and passion there is for Halo, but really seeing it in person, I think, was super inspiring. Especially these guys are, kind of working their butts off right now, and so getting a chance to get out there and share their appreciation was pretty cool.
And hearing the stories from people, just the stories of how they discovered Halo and what Halo means to each person was really special. So
Are they going to have to wait another 10 years for another event, or is it? I mean, there's obviously been QuakeCon forever. Call of Duty starting up an annual event. Is this something based on like the positive vibes? Is this something that 343 kind of feels like would be fun to continue, maybe not on a yearly basis, but just in general, the vibe?
I think it definitely would be cool to do something like this again. We'll just have to see. We'll have to huddle as a team and figure out, when it makes sense. But it was a great event, and I think to be able to do something similar again in the future would be fantastic.
Obviously, one of the really exciting parts about the Halo 4 panel that you guys did was the showing of the new concept art. Can you kind of maybe describe some of the things we're seeing there? There was some floating pillars, very mysterious.
It's meant to sort of spark mystery and speculation. Yeah, I mean, there's certainly all those details play into the setting and the story, and as we are familiar with saying, those details will start to come out soon. But we talked in the panel about sort of this living Forerunner world, and so that concept art really shows some of the intentions there.
Yeah, I mean,
but we can't talk specifics.
The things that
about
you're
it.
seeing there definitely come from the conceptualization that's taking place around the story and the campaign of Halo 4. And those are images that the team has developed over the last couple of years. Yeah, I'm excited to be able to share how those sort of come to life within the game when we do.
It seems like there's a lot of focus on like vertical lines and vertical space. Am I reading into it too much, or?
I mean that's kind of a question for Kenneth, our art director.
Okay.
But there's been a definite focus amongst Kenneth and his team on really defining what the look and feel of Forerunner is, and sort of taking the legacy of the design language that has been established in the past in Halo and continuing to refine and deepen that as part of what we're doing for Halo 4.
There is definitely sort of function indicated in some of those images. And we talked about kind of really wanting to get back to some of those epic sci-fi experiences. And certainly in a video game, verticality has a lot to do with sense of scale. And
yeah, I mean, a lot of that just comes from our own experiences with Halo and the first experience that we had, stepping out into these amazing worlds and incredible vistas filled with all kinds of wonder and just awe-inspiring places. And that was something that we really wanted to tap into and deliver on for our game.
One of the cool things I thought about the panel too was kind of, I feel like, meeting the team for the first time, one of the really interesting additions is it Satoru Tajima?
Tajima?
Yeah,
Yep, Tajin.
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 Yeah, we call
Yes.
him Tajin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really cool. I understand he's got a big history with the Metal Gear franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it's, when you're following Marty O'Donnell in the franchise, that's some big shoes to fill. Can you talk about more about kind of his role?
Yeah, Tajin, he basically oversees the entire audio vision for the game, everything from the music to the sound design, and so he's come to Halo with a lot of ideas about where he wants to take things from an audio perspective, and he really thinks about the game experience as a whole and how audio supports everything within that experience. So, the emotional context of each situation, what is happening within the story, how it's affecting the characters and the player, and really trying to build a soundscape around that. And I think he's also on the sound design side with the sound effects. He's really focused on trying to deliver a level of realism in how those sounds are conveyed, which is really challenging when you're dealing with a sci-fi universe where things are so alien and different, because you want it to feel realistic and believable, but also completely new and unique.
Yeah, Tajin is special because he's just creatively amazing, but he also has just such a fine attention to detail. And I know one of the first things he had said to me when he came on was, I don't want this to sound like we made all these sounds in a sound studio, right? Like that's not where epic sci-fi comes from. And so he's always thinking about what that player experience is and what the story is they're getting from the experience. And so I'm just thrilled to have him on the team. I think what he's going to be able to bring, both with his background and also just with where his vision is with games, is going to be really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, he will make comments that are deceptively simple, and that he'll say, I want outer space to sound like we recorded it in outer space, but he's really getting to that sense of it being otherworldly and finding ways to simulate that without obviously going into outer space, which wasn't an option for us.
Yeah, he was saying it was not really in the budget.
Not in the budget.
Space travel.
We had that conversation.
Yeah. Kiki put the...
Tasmania's as far as you
yeah,
go.
kind of off on that.
Well, that's cool. So just to clarify, is he handling composition of music as well, or?
So as audio director, obviously, he owns and directs all of it. We're working through now the composition pieces, but it all falls under his purview, so to speak.
No, like obviously the visuals and everything can bring forward the style and the look of Halo. Will the audio, will the music be able to will it carry over any of the classic Halo themes that fans have come to really love? And
I think there's a really important legacy there in Halo with the music, and so there is a lot in terms of the classic themes that fans have come to know and love and expect from Halo. And at the same time, we're really embarking on a new journey, and we're exploring new places that you've never seen in Halo before, and for that reason there are going to be new themes that are established that really tie into that experience, and that I think is the thing that I'm really excited about is hearing as we go through that exploration, which we're going through right now, hearing how those new ideas and new themes juxtaposed against those classic ones. And that's going to be, I think, a really fascinating journey that we go on as a team.
Yeah, I mean, Tajin has a huge amount of respect for Marty and his music.
As all of us do.
Yeah, and so I don't think there's any desire from his part to say, oh, that's done, now we move forward.
Yeah.
He's definitely cares very much about bringing some of that forward.
You spoke in the panel about kind of a more more of a focus on Master Chief as a character, kind of exploring more of what he's all about. How does that, I guess, translate? Because there's obviously a lot of just running and shooting things in Halo, and the story has always kind of been tricky to implement in a Halo game. Are there tactics you guys are kind of employing?
Well, I mean, we really approach the story in layers or channels or however you want to think of it, just in terms of what is the most critical path thing that everybody needs to understand, just where am I going, what am I doing, and why, and then underneath that starting to layer in additional information on the narrative side to really support the experience and give those players who care deeply about the story the ability to explore further and learn more. And that's sort of the approach that we're taking to storytelling throughout the game. And for Chief specifically, it's been a really interesting exploration for us because we know that we want to bring forward more of a sense of who is this character, who is this man, in a way that you have never really seen in the game specifically. I think there's a lot more development of Chief or John within the books and the comics even. And so for us it was really interesting to think about, well, how can we start to surface more of that in the game, but at the same time maintain that really precious balance between I'm the player, I'm playing this experience, I need to have a sense of ownership over what I'm doing, and at no point can the character be making decisions or voicing things that I disagree with, or there's sort of like this experiential break for the player in my mind. So it's finding that perfect marriage of the two, the character of John and the player who's playing him.
Yeah, and so much of the story really comes through the environment design and the visual details and the audio details and really what you experience as a player. It doesn't necessarily need to be sort of overt and in your face and disruptive to what you're doing as a player. And so that's kind of what we think about is our main thread is the gameplay that you're experiencing, and then it's about how do we wrap story throughout that experience so you're gaining it as you go along and understanding more through what your experience about what your character is going through and what you're seeing and hearing.
Yeah, I think there can be a tendency to think about, when you say story in a game, people think about all cutscenes and voiceover and things like that. And those are really important tools, but more important is that sense of place within the environment and telling story on the backstage, as you're sort of walking through and experiencing it. And all the other tools that we have at our disposal, like the music and sound and things that just together, all of these different tools enrich the experience and give it greater narrative context. But then for the player who just wants to run, gun, shoot things, you know, it never feels like it's an obstacle or a burden, and that's kind of our goal.
One thing about the Master Chief character, it seems like it's maybe kind of a challenge, especially as you're trying to focus more on his character, is that he's a similar problem that you know, maybe DC has had with like Superman, where he's just like, he's super tough, and you know, he feels like he's almost invincible. Like, how does that how does that like influence the storytelling in this new trilogy, and is that something you had? Has it been something you've had to like work with? Is it interesting to play with that aspect?
I think it's interesting to think about the Master Chief and think about, you know, what would it mean for Chief to experience failure? What would it mean for Chief, you know, to have to deal with that? And it's something that he's definitely had to deal with in his past, but it's never really come forth within the games, and so that's a really interesting thought. It is, I think it is a challenge when you're dealing with a character who is so perfect in so many ways, but then beneath every sort of, you know, surface of perfection, there's got to be idiosyncrasies and little, the things that make each of us tick, and those are the things that I think are so interesting to me personally.
Yeah, I mean, he's iconic, and players already have an expectation around who he is, and so we want to be careful, very careful about that, but I think there's a lot we can do in terms of the player understanding a little bit more about the decisions they have to make and he has to make, that just give a little bit more of an insight into him without sort of disempowering the player or making him too vulnerable. Or I think that's the hard balance, right? Is how do we give him some extra layers of interest without making the player feel like they've been diminished or he's been diminished in any way?
I think a lot of that comes from putting him in situations where he needs to make tough choices, you know, where the solution isn't always obvious, and then that really helps express more about who the character is, depending on the choice that he makes.
Do you guys feel, I guess, being able to start the new trilogy, that you're able to have kind of a freedom that maybe, you know, with Master Chief and Cryosleep and starting up a new thing, do you feel like a lot of freedom to take the Halo universe where you want to in Chief's story?
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, we have a good runway, and we have an amazing foundation, obviously, to build on. But yeah, I mean, this is part of where you know, Frank's involvement, and when we think about where we want the universe to sort of go and where we want to take players, this trilogy really gives us an ability to start to explore some different and new things, and expose more of the universe to the players. So I think definitely gives us some more freedom from a fiction standpoint, and where Chief can go and what the player can experience. With that, we're always going to come with being very grounded, obviously, in where we came from with the first trilogy.
It's important to recognize that this is a continuation of the story.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky one in that, you know, we're taking the story to new places and experiencing new things, but at the same time we have to always keep in mind the history to date and how to make sure that we stay true to that and to the characters that are a part of this world.
So with Anniversary, there's the Reach engine for multiplayer.
Mm-hmm.
There is what I believe is like a new engine for the new visuals.
Mm-hmm. There's a hybrid engine for that allows you to play both in classic mode
Mm-hmm.
as well as in the enhanced graphic mode.
And as far as Halo 4, is that the enhanced graphic mode, is that somewhat part of this Halo 4 engine, or does Halo 4 use a lot of Reach, or how is the engine being handled on that?
So it's different from Anniversary. I mean, I must reveal a code name for a second. This is an engine based on some of the past Halo tech, for sure. But it's also something this team has been working on to sort of optimize it for what we're doing. And so it's a completely internal piece of technology. But it is based on a lot of the Halo foundational tech.
You've spoken about using a lot of, Halo framework and a lot of things in the past. Going forward, are there any elements from the traditional Halo mechanics that you guys have been excited to tweak or play around with?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I talked about at the panel is just how, as a team, it's been this really, really great kind of exploration for us where we've wrestled with what are the things that we carry forward, what are the things that we maintain to keep that amazing Halo feel while at the same time exploring new mechanics and new ideas, whether it's new weapons, new capabilities that Chief and Spartans may have that really deepens the sandbox that's at the player's disposal. But there was always amongst our team a real desire to stay true to the core of what Halo gameplay is, so that when you pick up the controller and you play the game for the first time, there's no doubt in your mind that yes, this is absolutely Halo. It feels like Halo. It plays like Halo. It's different. It's new. It's fresh. But it has that familiarity that I think people will expect from a Halo game.
Yeah, and we went through a lot of really sort of deliberate exercises looking at vehicles and weapons and sandbox behaviors across all of the games, since they changed a lot as well across games, and looked at, what is the Warthog behavior that we liked across the games, because it was different. And when we look at specific weapons, what are sort of the favorites across the series? What do we keep? What do we abandon? And then just a whole suite of new things we tried. We probably threw away more than we kept in new sandbox items. But yeah, I mean, we looked across the series and kind of disassociated each of them. Warthog in Halo 1 was different from Warthog in Reach, and where was the sweet spot to land
Very cool.
on.
Well, I understand that Bungie came out for Halo Fest and did some panel work with you guys, and it sounded like it was a lot of fun for everyone involved.
That was awesome.
Is it everyone wants to build up some kind of 343 versus Bungie rivalry, but maybe could you guys shed some light on how the actual, relationship, has been as they've kind of passed the series on? And
I mean, I think we've partnered together for such a long time that we kind of built up a good partnership between the two studios, and that's made the whole process probably easier. But I think it's always hard for someone when I'm looking at it from Bungie's perspective. They, for 10 years they built this incredible universe and this incredible experience, and for them moving on to their next great thing, it's always going to be a little bit bittersweet. And so I think it's natural for people to try to read something into that, but we've always found common ground around our love for the universe and our respect and devotion to the fans and the community around the universe. And for us at 343, so many of us came here to work on Halo based on a love for that universe, and so we have a tremendous amount of respect for Bungie as the creators of the original Halo.
Yeah, and we're all part of the sort of Seattle game dev community as well, so there's good friends in both studios, and I think that piece will always be there. I think there'll always be, because we're game dev studios, healthy competition between studios, but that's good, right? We look at it as it helps make us better, and it allows mutual friends at the bar to snipe at each other.
It's all in good fun.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to chat with us, and definitely excited to hear much more about Halo 4 in the future.
We're very
Awesome.
excited to share more
Yes.
in the future. I think people think we're like, it's hard for us to keep the secrets, for sure. I think everyone's really excited to spill all the beans. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because like for you guys, it's been so long working on it, but for the fans, it's like it's so long before it comes out.
Yeah.
It must have been tough to kind of figure out where you wanted the official announce to kind of land.
Yeah, and you know, someone was asking me at PAX about, you know, how do you keep things secret for so long? And I think for us and the team, you know, some secrets are worth keeping, right? We want people to be able to experience some things without having the knowledge that they're coming, and really kind of have that moment of excitement when they first go into the game. So some of those secrets are easy to keep, but some of them are a little harder.
Yeah, it's
It'd be
definitely
nice to
definitely hard to have gone for so long without talking about the game. You know, just even being able to announce it. But every time that we think about wanting to share more with the fans, we always have to balance that against our desire for people to experience things and have those surprises without us spoiling it for them. So as much as people will probably plead and beg for us to reveal
Get
more
angry with
information
us
and get
for not
angry with
telling
us,
more.
really, you know, we want people to experience them in the right way. So
Cool. I can't wait to experience more.
cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very
Awesome.
much.
Thanks.